Welcome. My name is Amy Bauer, and I'm the managing principal and co-founder of 𝗪𝗂𝗀 Search Advisors, an executive search firm focused on the real estate industry. Today, we are thrilled to have Julie Ferguson, president of the Southern Division of Ryan Companies, joining us for our Women in Real Estate series. Julie, thank you so much for being part of WIRES today.
Yeah, Amy, thanks for having me. This is a privilege, and I'm honored to be here. So it should be fun.
Well, will you start by sharing a little bit about your role as president of the Southern Division with Ryan Companies?
Yeah, absolutely. So Ryan Companies is a fully integrated real estate development construction company. We have offices all over the country, and we work in lots of different asset types, such as multifamily, healthcare, data centers, industrial, build-to-suit, and pretty much do the construction, development, A&E work, raise the capital, asset management, property management. And as my role as the Southern Division is I oversee everything in Florida, Georgia, Texas, and states adjacent, as I like to call it, which is just about 1/3 of Ryan's top line revenue, and certainly our biggest opportunities for growth as a company, given the population growth and all of the desire to be in states that are very business friendly. So we've got the country divided into thirds, and I handle the southern part.
Okay, all right. So throughout your career, you have focused on some aspect of the real estate industry. So what is it that sort of initially brought you to real estate?
Yeah. Just happenstance. It was not something that in college I really thought a lot about. When I was in college all those years ago, real estate was not a formal program, at least not at the school that I was at. And so it was really more something you learned, you got into, and then you learned. And my first entry into the real estate world was while I was in school. I worked part-time for a bankruptcy trustee. And so this was early 90s, RTC days, for those of you who remember those things. And there were a lot of companies that had invested in real estate that had gone bankrupt because they overextended themselves. And so I did bookkeeping. And then my other job was to type up all of his notes from all of his meetings and all of his bankruptcy proceedings so that he could submit them to the court. Well, first of all, I got really fast at typing, so I can still type really well. My kids are amazed by that. But really, the other piece of that was I really got to sort of, as I was reading how these cases were unfolding and the issues that happened and how they financed their deals and why they ended up having to declare bankruptcy. It became more interesting and had an opportunity, to ask questions and understand a little bit more about that. So that was the thing that probably first piqued my interest. But when I was graduating, there was no I'm absolutely going to get into real estate kind of thing. And I really explored. I was really very focused on. I had a degree in finance and entrepreneurship, and what I was really focused on was this finance piece of it, and really wanted to do financial analytics and really build models and do all that cool stuff from a finance perspective. And so really the wide range of people that I interviewed with went everywhere from a lobbyist that was a lobbyist for the car industry of all things. And then did, talk to some retail groups, talk to some banks, and then was introduced to the CEO of the company that I went to go work for through the bankruptcy trustee that I was working for. It was a connection of his. And sat down with him, and he said, well, I'm in the real estate business, but I'm in the senior living business, and let me tell you what we're going to do. There's a whole bunch of loans that have defaulted because of the RTC, and we're going to go take advantage of this market disruption. We're going to go find a capital partner who wants to buy loan notes at cents on the dollar or get people out of their workouts that they're doing with the lenders. And we're going to buy these, and we are going to reposition them, and everything's going to be great. And I said, well, that sounds amazing. And we had 5 people at the company at the time. And he also promised me travel. And so what 23-year-old doesn't want to travel? Doesn't want to travel when you graduate from college. How fun is that? And so was attracted to that idea, and again, with my degree in entrepreneurship, really was looking for a company that I could go and be a little bit part of, be a part of the startup and be a part of the creation and the strategy, and how do we go from where we are today to there. So again, didn't know anything about senior living, didn't understand what it was, had absolutely no idea, and then went to go visit senior living and said, why don't they make these for 20-year-olds? Because I would love for somebody to do my laundry. I would love for somebody to cook my meals. I'm all about bingo on a Thursday at 4 and happy hour every Friday and Saturday. So I didn't understand why they were restricted to seniors, but fell in love with the business, and while it's a real estate business, it's a whole lot of other things. So really, there was not a strategy or an intent that led me there. It was a little bit. It was certainly who I knew, which we'll come back to later as we talk about the important things for your career in real estate or otherwise, and also the people that I was going to get to work with, and that was important to me, to be excited about the people who I'd be working with and partnering with.
Well, you mentioned the bankruptcy trustee and of course senior living, but you've made some transitions through other aspects of real estate, or working for a retail company, working in the public sector finance and development world, REA transaction marketing and team onboarding, private equity funds, and then Ryan. So you've made it, have had quite kind of a journey through different aspects of the real estate industry. So what challenges did each of those present, and how easy or difficult was it to make those transitions?
Well, I was really fortunate at the Fountains. As I said, I started at the company when it was really just beginning. And so got a great education, not just in real estate acquisitions and development, which I really learned by doing, but also got a great education in the growth of an organization. And so going from 5 people at one point to 50 people really over a 4-year period as we built our portfolio. And so had the good fortune of also getting a huge organizational education on the fly of how do we want to set this up? What do we want to do? And really the trajectory of my leadership skills was much faster because I was sort of forced into it. And of course, at the time did not appreciate that. That I got, quick start on understanding organizational dynamics and how you want to set things up. And so I think that prepared me really for the ability to do a whole lot of different things. But when I left Fountains around the time that they were selling the company and did not want to move to colder climates to work for the company that was buying them, and said, all right, what do I want to do next? And said, maybe I want to take a break from real estate, senior living. It's a lot. It was an intense 10 years plus at the Fountains. And so had a unique opportunity to work for Gap Inc., that owns Gap Banana Republic, Old Navy, now Athleta. And they had their shared services center in Albuquerque, New Mexico, which is where I grew up, and saw that as an opportunity to really use that leadership side of the equation that I really had worked on and lead a team of people in really something that I had no experience in or no knowledge of, but it was the leadership piece and the project management piece that they were looking for, of implementing new systems, implementing efficiencies in the business. And so was able to convince them that despite my lack of retail knowledge, that I could do the job that they needed me to do, and I could quickly study the retail piece of it. Again, connection that I had at that company, which got me in the door to convince them that I was the right person for that role, and that I could do the job, even though I was a non-traditional candidate for that particular seat. What I learned there is not suited for a really big company where I don't get to have a seat at the table and I don't get to have a significant say in the strategy. It was a great learning experience, and I learned a ton and totally different scale of anything that I've ever done. So that was great, and I love that experience. But really realized I did miss the real estate. I missed developing, and missed having a bigger leadership presence, within an organization. And so got the opportunity with somebody I did some work with while I was at the Fountains, who reached out, and he had been awarded a public-private partnership in the city of Albuquerque to do affordable housing, which I'd never done affordable housing. But again, somebody that knew my development skills and also, well connected in the city of Albuquerque. And so jumped into affordable housing work, which is its own unique and fascinating world. And I thought senior living was hard, and then I found the thing that was harder to get done. Everything that goes with that, from the city, the federal piece of it, from the tax credit allocations and working with the city on the public-private partnership, was just a very unique experience. I would say probably one of the most rewarding stops in my career, having grown up in Albuquerque, knowing the affordable housing was desperately needed in that city. I can still drive by today when I visit my mom.
That's cool.
And be very proud of the affordable housing units that we delivered in the city that was very much needed. So, but that was hard, and loved the experience. And then the great financial crisis happened, and the tax credit world sort of crumbled because banks didn't need tax credits anymore to offset their income. And so was at a crossroads of what do I do next? Decided also our kids were little. They were needing one of the parents, one of us, and my husband had a pretty demanding job at the time, needed one of us to be more present, be a taxi driver, which we all get to do at some point when we're raising our children. And so I decided to pivot to the real estate broker world. And I was a licensed real estate broker, which was one of the things that with the other company I was working for, I was required to do. And so went to go work with a friend of mine who was really just looking for somebody to partner with. But I really wanted something that was not 9 to 5. I needed a lot more flexibility, and being a broker, you're afforded that flexibility. Of course, as a broker, you're relying completely on yourself to be successful or not, which is a totally different world than getting a salary every 2 or 3 weeks and having the safety net of the organization. So I had to balance my desire for less work or less hours with my desire to continue to be successful, as well as earn an appropriate amount of money. So that was completely different, just because you are 100% on your own, and so really have to figure out how do you motivate yourself. But pretty easy transition from the perspective that well connected in the city of Albuquerque, and talk the talk and knew the people, and so was able to do that and be pretty successful in that with the folks that I was working with. But I also realized that's not something I wanted to do long term.
Right.
But it was a great flex space for me at the time of what I needed and my family needed, and greatly appreciate that the folks that I was working with, recognized that I had the talent to be productive and successful without being there 80 hours a week or giving 100% of my time to that. And so that's not always easy to find. And because you are relying on your talent and you're getting things done, worked out pretty well, because I can be pretty efficient. You learn to be pretty efficient when you need to be. So then my son got his driver's license, and the whole world changed. He got a car, insurance, and a little sister that came with it, that came with all that. And so really had been, I realized I did miss the senior living space, and the things that I love about that space are the people and the satisfaction of the residents who live there, and you get to meet them after you buy it or you build it, and so there's a really human connection that comes along with building senior living. and had the opportunity to get back into the senior living space, which was great, which was also kind of interesting because I'd been away from it now for 5 or 6 years, and so had to convince that group that I was still relevant in the space, that I still understood the space, that I still had the connections in the space, and that I could easily pivot back into that role in senior living. And again, through my network, that's how I got that opportunity. So again, my connections in the real estate world, my connections within the senior living space really led me to that ability, to the ability to take on that role.
And then again, you've spent a good time in the senior living industry because again, we talked about how you got into that with the fountains, and then again kind of got back into it at Titan and CBA, and then that's actually what you did as the early part of your career at Ryan, correct? Is that what brought you to Ryan?
It is what brought me to Ryan. And so the opportunity with Titan was a real estate company that had really had they were doing self-storage and industrial and multi, and decided they wanted to get into the senior living space. And they smartly realized it's not multifamily, and they needed somebody that really had some senior living background and understanding of the space and some connections in the industry to be successful. And realized it's an operating business that is not just real estate, but it's healthcare, it's hospitality, and it's all of those things. And so really welcomed the opportunity to get back into that at a small company where, again, I got a seat at the table and got to drive the strategy and what did we want to do and how did we want to implement that. And so really appreciated them trusting that I could step back into the space and sort of pick up where I left off, which I was able to do. And worked with them for several years. And as part of that, worked with them when we raised a private equity fund to fund our projects, which was something I had never done in my career, was the raising capital side, and appreciated how hard that can be. But it was a great experience, and work that time at Titan really set me up for the opportunity to come to Ryan. And I did originally come to Ryan to be their senior living sector leader, which runs the strategy and for the entire country, and larger scale of what I was doing at Titan Development. But without that Titan development experience, I may not have been on their radar, hard to say, but certainly feel like that set me up to be incredibly successful at Ryan Companies in that senior living space. And started at Ryan in December 2019 with a fantastic 5-year business plan that we were going to go do all of this stuff, and then we all know what happened in March of 2020. Threw away that 5-year plan, came up with a new plan, and grew, basically doubled the size of the platform in just about 3 years, which again, incredibly satisfying and great to be able to take all the skill sets that Ryan has and implement that into the senior living space.
Wonderful. Well, in today's uncertain times, I mean, you mentioned COVID, but there have been some unparalleled leadership challenges since COVID hit that we've faced. And what has been the biggest challenge for you or your team, and how have you tackled it?
COVID certainly threw everybody for a loop, and there was no playbook for that, right? If we look at real estate history, you sort of look at the cycles and you go, well,
right,
this is going to happen next, and then this is going to happen, and then we're going to get overbuilt, and they're going to be overvalued, and then we're going to go back, and we're going to be overleveraged, and it's a cycle. So COVID really challenged what do we do next, and how do we do it, and really had to think through all the ramifications, and certainly on the senior living side had bigger ramifications besides the real estate, given the population that lived in our communities. Would people still want to move in to senior living during or post-COVID? Because communal living was not a big thing during that, and how do we protect our residents? So really, had to shift that strategy, and appreciated that challenge, and certainly with the leaders at Ryan, figured out what was best for Ryan companies. And I think the biggest part for the last 5 years have been we don't know what's coming next. And so with COVID came supply chain issues and an overabundance of capital to be able to do the things, and then that created a whole set of next issues with interest rates completely changing, which shut down the development world for quite some time, and still today is hard to get past. And so I think the hardest part is we don't, a lot of the stuff there's not a playbook for, unlike in past times. And so really looking at what does it mean for Ryan, what does it mean for the industries that we're in, what does it mean for the people who are with us, keeping in mind that the majority of employees today haven't seen a down cycle.
Right.
And so I can tell you, when the interest rate piece hit and development really stalled, which is a huge component of what Ryan does, there were a lot of people who just didn't know, what does that mean? What does that look like? Now what do I do? How do I handle this? Because their professional careers had only been through an upcycle in real estate because we had such a long run. And so from a team perspective, it was important for all of us leaders to remember and recognize, we sort of go, we've seen 2 or 3 of these.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll get to the other side.
Yeah.
It'll be rocky. It'll be bumpy, but Ryan's, set up to survive all of these things and thrive in some cases. But there was a whole host of people who just were panicked. And so the biggest challenge, once we all sort of reminded ourselves of that, it became very important to provide them the assurances and walk them through, how do we get from here to there, and over communicate on the plan and the strategy for the company so that they had some assurances that we have a plan. We're gonna figure this out. We're going to we're going to get from here to there, and here's all the things that might happen, and we're going to communicate with all of you. So I think that's been the biggest challenge the last 5 years, is just realizing there's a whole group of people who had no idea what to expect in the face of uncertainty and a completely different real estate cycle.
That's a great perspective. Thank you for sharing that. That's a great perspective. So kind of 3 questions. We'll kind of take them one by one, but what has been your biggest accomplishment? What makes you the most proud?
I would say on the, professional side of things, it certainly has been the growth of the senior living platform here at Ryan Companies, and having the ability to influence the design, the locations, who are we partnering with on those, and again, that satisfaction that I've gotten from delivering so many homes to people. Over the last 5 years, and seeing people thrive, and not just our residents, but also the employees who work there, and the reminder that it's a business, but really we are working towards creating places for people to live, and how important that is, and what an important role that we play in their lives. And one of my favorite things is once 6 months after we're open, go have lunch with a group of our residents and get to hear their life stories and how excited they are to live at the community, and they wish they would have moved in 5 years ago, and all the things that come with that. But that's incredibly satisfying, and none of this is easy. And so that reminder at the end of it, of why we're doing it and why we had all the stress and did all the things, and worked tirelessly for the team to get things done. So I would say that strategy and that implementation of the strategy over the last 5 years in senior living certainly has been my biggest accomplishment, given everything that was going on in the market and everything, all the things that I didn't expect when I took the job. And so certainly very proud of that.
And what have you found most challenging throughout your career?
I would say my biggest challenge has probably been on the leadership side. And that has been an evolution. So 25 plus years, and we round up now. We don't talk about how many years I've actually been in business now,
Yes.
which is over 25. Really good at that. Leadership and organizational management was very different. It was very hierarchical. There was a lot of chain of command. There was a lot of you show up to work, you do your job. Nobody wanted to hear about your kids. Nobody wanted to hear that your kid was sick and you can't come into work today. And it was very, very focused on the career and getting the job done. And so that takes a certain type of leader and a certain type of approach to getting your work done. The other piece that was very prevalent when I started my career was the fact that as women, there were a limited number of seats at the leadership table. And so it was competitive with women. And so we didn't spend a lot of time building our women network or coaching each other or mentoring each other, because we were all sort of competing for the same prize. And so it was not supportive and not super helpful, to finding a woman mentor was a hard thing to do, because they're like, oh, well, then we're going to be competing for that same role. So I don't know that I want to do that. Right. Mm-hmm. So those two things stand out as early things in my career that I've had to evolve my thought process and how do I approach that. The women leadership supporting each other now is so prevalent, and it's amazing, and I love it. And I'm so thankful that we've gotten to the point where we don't have to compete with each other for seats at the table, that there are more seats at the table, and that there's so much support for that from an organization. And in the development space, construction space that I exist in, there's not enough women leaders at the table, and certainly we want to create the opportunities for more women to be at those seats in the future as we can throughout the development in the construction space. And so, but that took a mindset shift on my part to realize they're allies. They're looking to me for how am I setting the tone, and how can I help them advance their careers and give them the opportunities that they certainly are ready for and that they deserve. And then on the leadership side, certainly the face of work has changed. People have a lot more expectations of organizations today than I think they did 25 years ago, right? And certainly as organizations, we've evolved with maternity leave and paternity leave and the benefits and actually letting people take their vacation and encouraging them to take their vacations and really trying to strive for some of that work-life balance, and certainly more collaborative organizations today, highly matrix, where you're working across so many sections of the industry and so many stakeholders. And that just takes a different mindset, because where before you might be able to lead with power, now you have to lead with collaboration and persuasion, right, to get, to encourage people to follow you. Whereas, before it was just set up differently. And so that evolution of changing how I approach the leadership role, certainly I've had to evolve that and change with the times. And nobody likes change. Let's just be honest. So it took a concerted and intentional effort to make sure that I was suited for all of those next leadership roles in the world that we lived in, the world that we live in today.
Well, perfect. So how have you surprised yourself so far in your career?
I would say I've surprised myself by stepping into roles that are our reaches, and we do a great job of telling all the reasons we shouldn't take a job because we haven't checked all of the boxes, right? I forget where I read the article, but they said women, when they get a job description, they go through it and they're like, check, yeah, check, did that, did that. Ooh, wait, no, these 5 things I haven't done. And so ooh, maybe I shouldn't apply for the
Right.
role
Nope.
because it's a reach or a stretch. And I would say, probably the last 2 roles I've taken fall into that bucket of I finally threw that away and got over that and realized, like, first of all, there's not going to be the perfect person that's done all the things that somebody wants to hire. And aren't you stepping into a higher role because you're trying to grow and the company's, growing with you. So and that's new. That's like last 7, 8 years of my career, which is kind of crazy to think that. And so I kind of look back and go, what opportunities did I miss along the way because I was being too hard on myself? And so I would say the last 10 years, I think I've definitely surprised myself by just being just willing to take more risk than I perhaps was, and willing to take on a challenge where I was out of my comfort zone.
I think I read that same article. It was funny because it said that women have to check all 10 boxes and say, "Oh, I fit everything, so this is a good." And the men will check 3 out of 10 and say, "Oh, this is perfect for me."
Qualified. Why wouldn't I apply?
This is great.
Yes. Anyway, I like to share that with people who I talk to and who I mentor and talk with, and they're like, "Oh yeah, I totally do that." I'm like, "See, why do we do that?" And you'll surprise yourself if you give yourself that permission to step up and step into roles that you may not think you're qualified for, but most of the time we surprise ourselves and don't give ourselves enough credit.
Growth is getting out of your comfort zone.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right. So when you do have free time, what do you like to do in your free time?
Yeah, so I live in Austin, Texas, which has a fantastic food scene. So love to try new restaurants. Love to go back to the tried and true places all the time, and so really enjoy the vibrancy of the food scene. And there's new stuff happening all the time, which is great. We do a lot of walking with our dog, so enjoy the outdoors. Summer, we have to modify our hours a little bit, but that's okay. And so love to be outside, enjoying the paths along the lake and in the hill country, and so really enjoy that. And then I do read a lot of fiction. Not a big nonfiction fan, and I've decided that's because I spend all day in the nonfiction world, and I just want to think about nothing related to work when I'm reading a book, and so do some of that. And then my son is a musician. We own a recording and music studio here in Austin that he runs, and so spend a little bit of my time as a music producer. He's not famous yet, but someday. And then I have the good fortune that my daughter also lives in town. She's going to graduate school right now. And so spending time with both of them as grown-ups is nice and fun. And so we get the opportunity to hang out and just enjoy Austin together.
Wonderful. And finally, what advice would you have for women, or really anyone who is considering a career in the real estate industry?
Yes. So as I mentioned earlier, I got a lot of these opportunities by who I knew or connections of people that I knew, and did not appreciate at the beginning of my career certainly how important the network of people that you build is. And that can be, you never know where that connection might need to be. And so being intentional about which professional organizations that you join, tapping into your college alumni network, which is certainly easier to do today than it was before all the internet and all of the things that make it super easy to do today. And really honing in on how do you meet the people? And it's not just about collecting a phone number. It's about following up every so often, or having a meaningful conversation, or letting, sending them an update on what you're doing. Connecting with people on LinkedIn is a great way to do that. But I think we underestimate how important that network is. And certainly as a woman in commercial real estate, again, still not enough women leaders in this business, and so we've got to keep growing that. And so building that network is incredibly important at any stage in your career, and maintaining the network. It takes work. It takes time. It doesn't happen. Just doesn't happen overnight just because you went to a conference and you got 10 people's contacts. It does take effort, and needs to be monitored and managed and connected with at the right moments and the right pieces. But that in commercial real estate, at the end of the day, it's a small world, particularly if you're working in a city. If you're only working in a city, if you're working in an industry, senior living is a very small world at the end of the day compared to some of the other ones. And so that network piece is so incredibly important, and your reputation within that industry, and nothing wrong with bragging on LinkedIn about an accomplishment, which is also a new thing in the last 10 years. To be able to do that without being like, why would I tell people about that? Well, I'm going to tell everybody about that. And it's also great for your internal purposes and your internal promotion purposes as well, so that the leaders who work in your company see, oh, I didn't realize Sally in California did that. That's amazing. And I'm going to keep Sally in mind next time I'm thinking about building a team or adding some people to it. And so that's such a crucial piece for people to know who you are, and you never know when you're going to need them for a deal, a new job, some advice. It's all of those things. And so that is the one thing I would encourage everybody in the industry, but certainly incredibly helpful in the commercial real estate space.
Wonderful. No, that's great advice. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you. You've had an amazing career, and thank you so much for sharing your story today. It's really been an amazing career, an amazing story. And I thank you so much for your time. And to everyone watching, we hope that you enjoyed this episode of Wires and meeting Julie. It's been, again, wonderful time spent with her. Thank you for joining us, and goodbye.